Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network. As per usual, I'm Scotty49, and tonight we have got Alex and Deeksy joining us here on the network. How are you guys going, gentlemen?
Really good, mate. How you doing?
Yeah, doing well, How about yourself, Deeksy?
Pretty good. Yeah, I'm doing pretty good.
Nice. So, tonight we've got another tournament preview for you guys for the Dice Arcade ITC GT. It is also a part of the Down Under 40k circuit. Now, where you're going to be able to catch this is live on stream currently, but it's also going to be put up on the Australia's Tabletop Wargaming Network YouTube channel on Thursday this week. As well, the audio is also going to be included on the Down Under 40k podcast, which you can catch on Spotify. But ladies and gentlemen, how is everyone doing in chat? And I believe I've got something going on with the alert box there, which shouldn't be going on. But great to see everyone joining us for this evening. So tonight, we're just going to jump in a little bit to start off. Gentlemen, why don't we introduce you guys, get a bit of background about your hobby, where you're located, and yeah, what's your background and everything in terms of the game of Warhammer 40k. So, Deeksy, do you want to start us off?
Well, hey, I'm Deeksy, as Scotty said. I live in Newcastle. I've been playing 40k for over 2 years now. I sort of jumped on the hobby when, the pandemic started, and I busted open that Realm of Wrath box, and I looked at the little, figures, and I actually just packed it up, and I said I wasn't going to play that for a bit. I was like, hell no, that's a lot of gluing. But I played a few events, went to good games a few times, ran into Ben Way, and next thing you know, I've been playing the game for 2.5 years straight. Can't get enough of it. I'm borderline addicted to it. But right now I've had a bit of a dry spell, and I'm just chilling.
Yeah.
How about you, Alex? How you doing?
Where you're borderline addicted, I think I'm just borderline a dick. They're halfway there. I'm Alex. Nobody knows how to say my last name, so they all just call me the Greek, which is, really, really good, representing two countries, Australia and Greece now. So there we go. I've been playing pretty much about the same time as Deeksy. I got into, casual stuff with Sigma a little bit over 2 years ago, and then the pandemic, and then that really got me into 40k. So been having a lot of fun with it. I've been keeping myself busy in the hobby, to say the least, especially in the last 8 months, I'd say. I've been kind of really pushing the envelope on my own skill, and and getting to know the whole community. So I think I've definitely kind of cemented myself, around the New South Wales region, but also around Australia. So having fun, keeping it chill. I'm actually going to this event as well that we'll be talking about today. So yeah, really keen to talk through it, and really keen to be a part of it.
Yeah, it's shaping up, I should say, to be a great event. 80 players at Gaimea Tradies in Sydney. It's going to be awesome by all things that I can see from down here. Another member of the network, Jack, will be physically on location streaming the tournament, with myself providing commentary remotely from here in Canberra. It's going to be really a great time, and I'm looking forward to seeing some Arcs of Omen 40k GT action. So, to start off our discussion a bit about the event, I guess, as we just said, I've just frozen the camera by looking at a different window, because that's going to be fun. Love that. Here we go. All right, so we've got 80 players. It's 5 rounds, and, it's, as we mentioned, Gaimea Tradies, but we've also it's a part of the Down Under 40k circuit. So, gentlemen, do you want to just kind of explain a bit more about what the Down Under 40k circuit is for those who don't know?
You want to take this away, Alex, or you're sort of the king at it? How many points you get last season, bro? Look, I'm
at least 6.
At least 6, bro.
Yeah.
I got at least 7, so maybe I should take it. I don't know. You take it away, man. Come on.
The Down Under 40k circuit is something that was initially set up, realistically just for, the New South Wales region, and it's just blown up. We've had, Down Under 40k circuit events that also happen outside other states as well. It's an amazing way for us to rank the community as a whole, and, put ourselves in part of this, kind of circuit to see who, comes on top, whether that be within individual factions, whether that be on actual general mastery, It could also be just in brackets like Imperium, Chaos, Xenos, whatever you want to do, right? At the end of it, we also have these amazing, kind of little party at the end where we just go through and, have this award ceremony, have banter, have a little bit of an event as well, and get everyone together. So the guys at Down on 40K have been running that, and it's really good fun. They also have a website, so you can actually check the circuit rankings. You can also check out everything that's happening in terms of what events are coming up, what events are past, whatever you might want to do. And you can check that all out on downunder40k.com.au/rankings if you want to check that out. So really cool stuff there. They're also the guys that do the leagues, generally speaking, around New South Wales. So yeah, check out Down on 40k. Please support them. And in the words of Dale, hooroo.
Yeah. Nice.
Yo,
That's
you
awesome.
got a script there? You nailed that. What the hell? I'm so glad I didn't take the reins on that. What the heck?
It's like done on the spot, mate.
No, I would just like to say he's right. Like the ladder is, and like that ladder's the only thing that matters. Because let's be real, the ITC scoring is nice and all, but it's like it's got people all over the joint. There's so many people that's on it. You don't get a good ranking with this. This is a straight up like way to just look. I'll just say it. Just shit talk your friends. Like that's all the Wednesday night boys do. Like you can't let any of us have more points than you, or you won't ever forget it. Like as a team, the Wednesday night boys, we'll just head hunting to try and make sure we went above the Down Under boys. And I think we did. They're sort of trash though, so it wasn't that hard. I think we're gonna have to go for Alex's team next, but we'll see how it goes.
So, yeah, just tell me if Ben Hader's getting a bit too cocky and picking on you boys, just let me know, and I'll just jump back on the Sallies.
Oh, bro.
So just going to throw to chat for a second. Welcome in Dasma, who is one of the TOs for the weekend, and an Aussie Wargamer. Welcome in. Great to have you all joining us. Dasma has also added that the tournament is a part of the Oceanic competitive circuit as well. So this is a event that does give a qualifier ticket to the Victorian finals for the Oceanic Championship circuit to win I believe it is a trip over to Atlanta for the Warhammer World Championships in November later on this year, hosted by Games Workshop themselves. So that's really exciting to hear as well. So let's get into some of the weeds here, gentlemen. And I reckon first off, let's talk a bit about the terrain and the terrain maps, which this isn't something we generally see too much of, but it's really interesting. So I guess on screen, we've got the first round. So the first mission is Tide of Conviction. So I do know that this one is a score 2, score 3, score more mission. But in terms of the terrain placement, really interesting. So Alex, I know we did speak earlier, I think it was later last week, sorry, and you'd mentioned that you had done up all the graphics and everything. So do you want to take a bit of a lead on this and talk us through a bit about the terrain and kind of the maps for these different scenarios, starting off with this one?
Yes. Eugene and Josh Hanley, they organized the terrain layouts, and they actually sent me images after all this was submitted with the layouts that they had in mind. And we kind of had this really cool idea. We wanted to make sure that firstly, everyone had the terrain maps and packs and knew how to lay out everything exactly to the right measurement on their table. So you're not going to have any issues there. That being said, there are some funky interactions with some of the maps, and it's a terrain placement and terrain setup where they've had to actually incorporate some custom rules. And one good thing about that is that it does give a bit more variation. Like, we never see heavy cover in 40K. I love the fact that we're actually going to be trying that out.
Yeah, dude,
So,
I do like that,
actually,
actually.
Yeah, it's an extra layer, right? I mean, demons
That's
players like
cheeky.
you, Deeksy.
Yeah, dude, like it's really like that. I'm like, wait, heavy cover, wait. Like it sort of just brushed past me because I thought you just said light cover, but yeah,
No.
no one not many people take advantage of like terrain, and it's pretty funny. Once you see heavy cover, I reckon a lot more people will be like, oh dang, that's actually good, and will remember it a lot more.
Yeah,
it's basically
100%.
AOC now in Melee, right? So
True.
having access to that's going to be really big for all factions aside from demons. I think one thing that people have, I know there's been, some people maybe having a bit of polarity between, what they like and what they don't like about the terrain. I think regardless of the fact, it's going to show how flexible the community is, and we're going to see some interesting matchups here, I think. So based on the terrain, we'll probably get some really cool matchups coming through, and it'll be great to see on stream, I think, because it's very kind of clear cut and simple in terms of design and function. So we really make the units shine, and I think you're going to probably notice some things where speed is preferential in the matchups. So if you can get fast movement and get into either melee, or fast movement and get angles to shoot, I think those are the sort of lists that we'll probably prevail.
Yeah, definitely.
It's probably like explaining the player pack, and I just haven't read all the way down. But is there any way for like in that middle room? That's like two small rooms put together, right? So can only infantry go through that bit, or
infantry, beast, and swarm would be the ones that can make it through there.
Yeah, so only okay.
But if there's a little bit of the gap, obviously in the middle, kind of going up and down, you could probably get like something small in there. But I doubt that you have any vehicles or monsters that are that tiny to actually walk in a straight line through it.
Yeah, okay. It's going
maybe
to be
some cavalry, maybe some cavalry just through that part.
Yeah, okay.
You're not walking through a wall, so you could do a straight line there. But
the chapter calls,
be doing like a
we
speed
answer.
Yeah,
well,
awesome.
Hopefully not many people will be fighting over the middle anyway, so...
Not on this mission. I mean, I think some of the other missions, yeah, but then the terrain setup's different.
Yeah. So I guess let's, for the listeners and the viewers out there, let's just kind of walk through what each piece of terrain is, and we can kind of explain, what impact that's going to have. So the green outlined boxes, they're your area terrain that have got breachable, light cover, defense, dense cover, difficult ground as well. So that's -2 movement, +1 to armor against range, and I believe dense covers -1 to hit. Then you have got the scalable, so that is the intact building. Intact building is scalable, breachable, light cover, heavy cover, defensible, and obscuring. You've got your craters, sorry, not craters, containers, which are light cover, scalable, and exposed positions. Then you've got the large building, which is more the squares, which is scalable, breachable, light cover, defensible, and obscuring as area terrain. You've then got a shallow crater, which is light cover, area terrain. It's interesting that there's no difficult ground on the craters to note. Because normally have then ground? Craters are normally a -2 to movement when you're moving over
I was thinking of crates, sorry, not craters. Yeah, true. Do you reckon that might be a bit of like just something that went over their head, or just hell yeah?
Maybe it was just their choice.
I like that. The speed's gonna come straight through, like Alex said, man. If I had like some seekers just straight over that would be like catch people off guard, I reckon.
Yeah.
The real question is like, I reckon half the people at the event are gonna play it as -2 without actually looking at it, and like the top players are just gonna be like read through it all, just ignore the -2 and just have a field day with that.
Yeah. And Dasmer
one thing that the guys are doing, which is really good, is that they are putting these little packs for the terrain on each table, as well as the layouts there for you. So the reference guide is going to be there. I think that should be the new standard. I've been pushing for terrain packs and everything to be very visual for a while, which is why I spent the time once lists were all submitted to actually make the digital guide. I just think it's easier. But if you guys have any feedback, please let me know. And if you do want to in one of your own events and you want to work out how to do that, I'm happy to help invest some time to get that going as well. To any TOs out there.
For sure. And Dasma, one of the TOs in chat, just confirmed that it is on purpose that they don't have the -2 movement. So that is great. And great to see everyone in chat as well. Love your interaction and what's happening as well. And we got Dale, one of the down under 40k guys in chat as well. Awesome to see you, mate. So, on the Tighter Conviction board, you've got, I believe, in the middle of both deployment zones, just in front of the home objective, you've got 2 lots of containers. On the left-hand side for each deployment, looking at their opponent, have got a large building. In the middle, it's got the 2 split buildings. And then on the right-hand side, in the deployment zone, is the area terrain. As well as then in No Man's Land on that right-hand side has also got the intact building there as well. So what do we think of this deployment? Like, I think it's really interesting that that home objective is completely blocked off, but I like that idea for that objective on this mission, considering that there is a secondary where there's a second part of the mission, I believe, where you get a disadvantage if you're not holding it. I'll just find it real quick.
While you're going through that, I think one thing that's very interesting, and that will come up in this event that people probably play wrong, which I've noticed quite a bit. There's probably going to be some indirect, right? We have guard players. I think we have 9 guard players going. And
That is
7
correct.
of them are bringing indirect weapons. There's other armies that obviously bring indirect weapons as well. Now, fun fact, obviously, if you can't see the model, you get the +1 save. A lot of people don't realize, though, and you can see that on the tags here, though, that crates do give light cover. They don't give it on the top. But if you, as the opponent, cannot measure end-to-end both sides of the base of the unit you're shooting, and they're within 3 inches of the crate, they will actually get the benefits of light cover if they're an infantry base or swarm unit. So while indirect's going to be, prominent, you at the very least you will be getting that light cover save on top of it as well if you are putting an infantry unit there.
Yeah, exactly. And so the deterrent from if you're not controlling it on a 1 to 3 on a D6 roll during a command phase, you don't get your command your CP. So it means it's pretty important to hold on to that objective in this mission. Yeah, Deeksy, do you have any thoughts on this table as well? Like any other thoughts outside of that?
Priority target! All guns! Open fire!
Oh, Deeksy, you're muted, mate.
It's better this way, don't worry.
Yeah, don't worry. I was just gonna say, you boys nailed it, yo. Nailing this, nah. Like, I like it. I already talked about how I'm interested about the ruins in the middle. Like, as me who loves big demons like a Bloodthirster, Be'lakor, or something like that, I'll be interested to see if I'd actually be able to put something in there. But at the same time, it's not a big worry at all. There's no objectives there. I've just sort of got my mind on that right now. I'm getting distracted, mute my mic and stuff. So
I think the layouts are definitely going to test some players that are used to a set standard. Not to say that this is a 4 standard, it's just that it's different, right? And then because of that, it's going to breed different strategies that need to actually come up. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. Now, I know one thing that was pretty bold was that obviously nobody knew what the terrain maps were at all before we submitted lists. So this is definitely going to be something that is a stress test. And we're going to see how this goes. Obviously, I'm assuming the guys at Dice Arcade will get the feedback and obviously adjust appropriately if they need to. But it'll be interesting to see how flexible Arcs of Omen is as a whole. Whether, unique terrain formats work, whether they don't, things like that. It'll be really cool to see.
Yeah, for sure. I really like how there's a decent amount of, there's not many fire lanes from deployment to deployment. You've got to get the right angles to achieve them as well. That's something else I'll note for this one for tighter conviction. But I think let's move on to the next one, which is one of my personal favorite missions, Death and Zeal. So this is table quarters, hold 1, hold 2, hold more. You got 1 in the center of each table quarter and then 1 directly in the middle of the board. In terms of your terrain layout, you've got those split intact buildings, 1 on either side of the middle of the objective. Then on either side of those in no man's land, you've also got the shallow craters on either side there. Also, want to shout out to everyone that's dropping follows as well. Really appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. We have got the crates also on that kind of line where it just hits that 9-inch circle, but then also what it also does is cut into no man's land a little bit on the line, and that's on the middle line through the long table edges. So on the short table edges, going from short table edge to short table edge, you've got the area terrain in the middle there as well. In your deployment zones, you've got a large building each, and then in no man's land, you have got an intact building in the corner of each of those as well. So immediately what I can see is that this setup, if I'm reading it correctly, that the split buildings are obscuring, they are going to be prime for close combat armies to leapfrog across very quickly into your opponent's deployment zone and kind of stage in that middle field.
I think, look, yeah, there's obviously breachable or fly is going to be really good if you can get the hiding done. Now, there is a bit of a gap, obviously a 3-inch gap on the bottom or top of the containers that enemies can go across so they can actually get line of sight to shoot you. But I actually think this is probably one of my most favorite ones that they've actually designed here, mainly because your back objective, your home objective is safe. You do have angles and line of sight on one objective from your home deployment, but nothing else. And you do have to really work for it. And this is one of the reasons why I said, fast moving units are going to be key here. You want to set yourself up, move, do everything you need to do. As an example, let's just say we're the player in the bottom left in the red deployment zone. For us to see the other objective in the right zone, we either have to go down to the bottom of the containers or we have to be on the top of the containers. Now, being on the top of the container can pose some risk because then enemies who are staged can actually strike you. So for shooting armies, you do have to actually be mindful of that too. And I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of brawling in the middle for this objective mission. You're probably going to be holding your one, similarly up the top or bottom, depending on if you're blue or red. And then you're going to be, pushing for that mid. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah, for sure. I think I definitely agree in terms of the fight will be over the middle. It always is on this mission. And so, but I like how you can stage away from that 9-inch circle and you've got enough cover around you that you're able to be relatively safe from fire lanes as well. So if you want to play a more reserved style game, then you can. But yeah, Deeksy, have you got any thoughts on this one, mate?
Well, this is the perfect map. This is why I asked if there could be a gap in the middle. The only thing that would make this map perfect for me if those were 3 stories high, blacked out, so I could just put a Bloodthirster in the middle and I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I actually froth this map heaps good. The speed is going to be so crucial in this sort of map. Everything's sort of spaced out, which I sort of love. I sort of like this feel where you got to make a dash towards each bit of terrain, but if you make it over to that side, you're sort of sweet, and then that next turn is just so deadly. Infantry units are just going to love this map. There's literally, the one bit that's sort of open in that middle, you've got light cover, and the best part is you don't even take the -2 if you want to stand on it. So it's not going to slow infantry down, even if they do need to go that way. I love it. Look, the first one I had a little bit of questions about because I like putting things in the middle, but this one I love. This one's amazing.
Demon approved, I think.
Demon,
with your beans and towns as well, mate.
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
Even as a Marine player, I look at that and go, that makes Oaths of Moment a bit harder. If you don't have fly keyword models to get over that piece of terrain.
Yeah.
It makes it a harder secondary to take on this mission. It makes you think. I really like it. All right, so let's move on to the third one. And this one's scouring. So you've got your table edge to table edge on the short table edge. We have got going from the deployments of player B, and it's obviously mirrored in player A. You've got 3 containers that are kind of in the middle of your deployment zone. On the left hand, on the bottom side, which is really your left when you're looking at your opponent, you got the large building there, and then on the top, which is your right, you've got the intact building. In the middle, you've got the 2 split buildings again with that gap in between for that objective. Then along the center line, going from long table edge to long table edge, you've got the area terrain there as well. And then the top right-hand corner of player B, bottom left-hand corner of player A, you've got the craters in there as well. So decent amount of terrain in the deployment zones as well, but Scouring has all of the objectives in No Man's Land. And from memory, Scouring might be one of those missions that denies you from putting things in the middle in No Man's Land.
No.
This one's awesome if you got a scout deploy or a Brock or whatever.
It's got the Ausspec scan. You're right. Yeah. So, and then the bonus is if you
doing an action.
Yeah, it's doing the action.
Doing an action on each objective. You can only do 1 action per turn, so you can't just stack it all at the end. It has changed now. Instead of it being completed at the end of your next command phase, I believe it's now end of turn.
Yes.
So it's very easy to score.
That's amazing.
Yeah, very easy to score the first 2 that are closer to you, especially because with the Scouring, the objective aura actually reaches out into your deployment zone. So you can also just touch it from your deployment. So being able to do that is huge. And I think if there's a few Sally's players going, being able to make this a Promethean Creed objective as well is pretty easy to get 15 points. But then the armies that are going to be in a really good spot here, this is actually a harder map to play shooting on, mainly because everything is so close. So from objective on the left side to the right side is very tight. But not only that, if you look at the actual deployments, for you to actually get line of sight to actually shoot someone on an objective is actually pretty difficult.
Yeah. Like, you can't just sit in your deployment zone and just go, I'm just going to castle up and just do my thing. You've actually got to press into the middle and do stuff. So, yeah, I definitely agree with that as well. Yeah, I kind of like scouring because it forces you to engage. You can't just sit in your deployment zone. One thing I do note is that you've got a piece of terrain that goes onto each of the 4 objectives that aren't in the middle as well. So if you're able to sit on it within your deployment zone, getting cover as well. So if your opponent does get line of sight, like you've got somewhat of a fire lane on the table edge of each of those piece of area terrain. Like if you were to get a fast unit there, like say Ravenwing Black Knights, for example, they could get there. You're still getting cover. So that plasma is not going to hit you as hard. So instead of hitting you at a -3, it's somewhat of a -2 instead. So this does help as well.
Like the only lanes they really have is just completely covered by like that neg1. So any lane they've got is just going to be neg1 to hit. If whoever they're shooting at is going to get +1 to that armor save. And if they're running into a melee unit, that's just going to be rough because like if you want any points, they're just going to get like a charge very quickly and pretty easy. I'm hoping everyone's been putting points into screens. Like screens are important these days. So
oh yeah, and forward deployers as well if you have access to them.
Yeah, I'm really hoping I play guard in this map.
Yeah. Oh, that's a nightmare.
I've already got neg1 a hit. If I can stack that second one, let them hit on 5s. That's all I want.
Oh, spicy. Alrighty, so the next mission up we have got is Abandoned Sanctuaries. So this is your long table edge going to long table edge here. You've got 5 objectives, 1 in deployment zone, and then 3 across the center line going from short table edge to short table edge. You have got, along that middle line, you've got 2 intact buildings in the center of each deployment zone. On the left-hand side of player B's deployment, as you're looking at player A, you've got the large building. Then across kind of that diagonal line, through from top left-hand corner to bottom right, you've got the 2 pieces of area terrain, and closer to the middle where there are the 2 split buildings again around that objective. And then you've also got the containers on the other side of that as well, to really create some interesting fire lanes and interesting staging areas. So Alex, do you want to explain this one a little bit more? I'd love to hear your thinking behind it.
This one to me, where we had scouring, that's probably more of a melee player's dream. This one here is a shooting player's dream. Obviously any kind of deployment where it's wider deployment, you can get easier angles when pushing forward. But also, looking at this, there are 2 open objectives, and then the 2 home objectives as well are actually, for you to get that, you will have to be visible at least through a window. So there's no real way of hiding. So this is going to be very much a shooting favored map, similar to what the scouring was for melee favored. So we'll see what happens here. This one here, I'll be honest, my game plan is to go first. Because I think what you can do is, if you go first, you can get the angle from anything hiding behind those containers due to the angle there. You can also get angles onto the enemy's home objective. And I believe in this map, yes, it is this map, nobody can forward deploy. So no forward deploy, no pre-game move, nothing like that. So definitely a shooting favored setup.
Yep. 100%
just
agree.
Like Brody said, this map is wild. Like Alex said, turn 1 shooting, I'd be terrified on this map. I feel like I'll just go for something completely weird, and I'd actually hide everything for like maybe a turn, and not actually go for those middle objectives. Like I am thinking of a very melee based army, to be fair. And I don't know. It's like I have no idea when it would be a good time to get on those objectives. I know Alex probably would, and that's why he would like kick my butt. But this map's wild. I would hope I'd get to go first as well, shoot some cannon shots, and maybe charge into something turn 2.
My saving grace, I think, that I have is that I can at least give myself +1 save and light cover for the first turn, due to my arming setup and what I've designed. So I guess I have a little bit of flexibility. However, that being said, you are just losing points before anyone else can interact. So it can be a bit rough. I think melee versus melee, this map's completely fine.
Yeah.
You're just gonna, interact and see what happens. Still pushing for the middle is a good strategy, because if you have a small enough footprint, the shooting armies won't really get to you. However, if it is a bit more of a hybrid list like mine, I have like 7 units of melee, I will be trying to push that middle as well.
Something else is like, I think definitely agree that shooting into melee is terrible on this matchup. Shooting into shooting depends on deployment and who goes first, and the armies that are shooting each other. And then agree that melee versus melee is going to be pretty decent as well on this map.
Yeah,
the other thing that
melee is just going to be pretty plain. Just it's going to be whoever's just rolls better.
Yeah.
Let's not say who's better. Let's just say who rolls better.
Yeah.
We've got actually someone, Brody, who said in the chat, he goes, Alex, when we play round 4, can we just roll off the first turn and then pencil in the 20-0 and go get a beer? So, I'm fine with that, but I think whoever doesn't roll as good, so obviously whoever doesn't get first turn, they get a free beer. The other person has to play.
Yeah. The other thing that Ezekiel Brody also pointed out in chat is that those middle ruins within your deployment zone actually touch the table edge, so you actually can't hide anything behind them. I think that's quite a good pickup on that as well. So it means that if you want to be on that objective, you've got to be within the ruin, which means you are shootable from those angles as well.
Yeah, so in that way, you might as well get the light cover, is basically what I'm thinking. There are also, in looking at these designs for the actual ruins, which I have one here. I can probably get it 1 second. Let's just dropping everything like it's hot. But I don't know if you'll be able to see this.
Yeah.
We're going to find out. Okay, so you'll see that the windows aren't massive windows.
Yeah.
So you can hide to a degree. You'll just have to try and have small footprint things to make it work.
Yeah.
And that's the other side as well.
Yeah,
so,
cool.
Oh, yeah, you could definitely get a body or 2 behind those for sure. That's
100%.
Just watch out for this little pit here.
Yeah.
If you hide in the corner, you can get someone to see you through that.
Yeah, for sure.
That's me giving solid advice for anyone playing. Don't do that against me.
Drop into the Scotty stream full of goddamn down under. Oh man, we got everything going on here, man.
Yeah.
All right. Then we come to mission number 5, which is your secure missing artifacts. This is your angled hammer and anvil deployment. And this one changes things up. We don't have those 2 split buildings in the middle on this one. We've actually got the large square buildings that are kind of just cornered in to your deployment zone for each player along that middle line. Then you've got the intact buildings square up with the corner kind of in the middle of your deployment zone towards the center, along the center line, but just on the other side towards the top and bottom respectively. So for the player B's deployment, it's down towards the bottom. For player A, it's towards the top. That's where your area terrain piece is. You've got 1 container on the center line going from long table edge to long table edge, and then kind of just outside the deployment zone on objective B in the right-hand corner, objective A in the top left-hand corner. You've got those split buildings on there as well. And this one is 5 objectives. This is the one where you actually move the objectives as well. So really interesting in terms of those deployments, particularly those split particularly of those split buildings there, Alex. Do you want to just kind of walk us through how that's going to function with the moving of the objectives?
Realistically, if you're playing a list that needs to have a weaker unit or just like a little chap unit hold an objective and they're not really that durable, what you want to try and do is get defender pick here, and if possible, then move. As an example, let's say we're player A, a deployment zone. You want to move that objective outside of your deployment zone labeled A and move it completely to the left. By doing that, what you're going to be able to do is actually hide behind it and then keep yourself hidden. So you do have play here. Whereas if you're a melee army, what you want to, or if you're like a really rush army, I should say, for speed, and you have a bit of durability, what you want to do is move the opposite way for the opponent. So if I was player B, I would get player A's objective outside of the deployment zone and move it 6 inches towards me. By that way, it's completely in the open, and it makes my charge a lot easier. That can also be said for shooting armies, and if you want to get that lane, you can be able to do that. So realistically, there is a bit of counterplay here, and we'll see what will happen. You are giving yourself a bit of a risk if you move the enemy's objective first, because then they get to move yours and their other one. Now, as an example, they could then move it right behind the obscuring ruin. They could put it next to the other obscuring ruin that's more in their deployment zone, but because like we saw, there's only one window on that side of the actual ruin there, so you are decently protected. There's a whole bunch of different things that you can do there. So this one's pretty cool that it's a last mission. So while we're all tired and ready to go home, we have to actually have more critical thinking. But I would recommend that people actually study this map and really work out where they want to move an objective in advance based on their matchup.
The chapter calls.
Yeah, 100% agree. 100% agree with that, because it can be so like, and that's the thing. Being around 5, this moving objectives could determine who wins the game, right? It'll have such a big impact and could determine who wins the tournament even. So they're going to be, a bit of player fatigue in there, but at the same time, knowing how you're going to handle this going into the event is paramount in terms of if you're wanting to win on this matchup. I think it's kind of interesting because there's some direct fire lanes. This is the first time I've actually seen direct fire lanes from deployment to deployment where you could put a unit on the center line and you can shoot straight through to your opponent's deployment zone as well. That's the first time I've seen it on any of these maps where it's just one straight line.
There's another funny one, and I pointed this out to my team, but if you have a look at, see the no man's land where there's the 215 inches labeled? If you set up a unit there, you can actually shoot all 5 objectives.
Oh,
So-
wow.
I was just looking at those corners and I was like, bro, I'm like, you sit there?
Yeah.
Like, there's so many open lanes.
Exactly right. So, but in saying that, we are obviously moving objectives in this mission, so it doesn't end up being that impactful. What you want to do is, if you're against a shooting army, you definitely want to remove those options as a spot. So whether that's through your own units or whether that's through objective placement. So if you can do that, that's going to be a really good way to handle that. We're giving all the tips here. This is obviously the way to go.
No, it's great. I love the thinking behind it, and these maps, it's great to see that maps are being a lot more used, because the first time that I actually personally interacted with maps was at the Maitland Team Champs in April, May last year. That was the first experience I saw, and it was the WTC maps, and they were down to like the 1/4 inch, and I'm like, wow, that's a lot. Whereas from what I see from your ones, you've got the inches labeled out of where they should roughly be, or they're to corner, and so it makes easy sense. And it's a lot easier to do that rather than just being like, here's a grid, here's where the terrain should be. It's like, oh, how far across is that on the map? And it just gets a bit wonky. Whereas this, so much cleaner, so much more easier to understand as well as a player. Particularly as you get later on into the rounds, it's like round 3 on day 1. You're just going to look at the map and go, yep, that's just going to be this far in, this far across, done. Easy. It reduces that player fatigue, reduces that thinking. So overall, I love the deployment maps. They're awesome.
No,
So-
I like it. Sorry about that before, boys. Like, someone just kept saying hello, and I was like, I have no idea what's going on.
Nah, you're all
I
good,
really
mate.
like this map. Like, I think it's a lot more different to the other ones. I like how out of all the maps as well, like, there was definitely some that benefit melee a lot more. There's definitely that wild map that just benefits shooting, and then this one's just going to be like real nice one in the middle. You'll be able to jump to the half runes more. I prefer the half runes because I reckon you can hide more behind them most of the time. The 2 big ones in the middle, that's going to be nice and juicy. Everyone's going to be fighting through that. Everyone's going to be getting that +1. And I hope everyone remembers to stay in the rune and to use things like what is it, brace for impact or take aim.
Set to defend.
Set to defend, sorry. Brace for impact, I don't know what that's, but yeah, set to defend, like just stuff like that. That's going to be so good on this map. You'll be able to get probably most of your units in the runes when you fight for the middle bit. So everyone, please remember that.
Yeah, it's something that I don't see a lot of players make use of, but you're 100% correct that it is something that, players are starting to make use of going forward. Alrighty,
Well, also that one there. So as an example, that big ruin, like we said, heavy cover. Oh no, sorry, it's not. It's the little ruin. It's the little square ruin. That's heavy cover. So that's
Yes.
more in your deployment zone. So yeah, there's obviously that as well to take into consideration.
Yeah, for sure. So we're just going to get things swapped over to, I think it's going to be, we're going to jump into a bit of the meta at the tournament now. So I'm going to let Deeksy walk us through this for everyone's viewing pleasure. But before we do, I want to thank everyone that has followed the channel, those who have dropped bits and subs all throughout it. Your support is greatly appreciated, and it helps us be able to cover more events, build more teams for the network to cover more of the southeast region of Australia for Warhammer 40k tournament scene. All right, so Deeksy, why don't you take us away, walking us through what is the meta at the Dice Arcade GT for this coming weekend? And you're still muted, bud.
Do you want me to start with the lowest faction and work my way up, or do you want me to
Just
start?
go from top to bottom in terms
to
of
bottom?
go from like
So
Space Marines across.
Easy. So for Space Marines, we do have 12 plays, which is like 20. Oh no, wait. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 12 plays, which is about 15%. For Dark Angels, so we definitely know what's meta there. Everyone's taking all that free equipment. Everyone's loving it. For Imperium, we've also got 9 people for Astra Militarum, which is bonkers. That's just the best way to describe that. 9 people. Bro, I'm just double checking this. I have no idea there was 9 for that one faction.
Yep.
Insane. Knights seem like they're like not as popular anymore. I think that's probably because Guard are so popular. Would you like me to go through like all the factions in each one, or just
just go through all the Space Marines and then all Imperium and do it that way.
So Dark Angels, we got 4 plays: Imperial Fists, 2 Salamanders, 2 Ultramarines, 2 Black Templars, 1 Iron Hands, 1 Astra Militarum, 9. So this is Imperium now, done with the Space Marines. Sorry, forgot to say that. We got Imperial Knights on 4, Adeptus Custodes on 3, Adeptus Mechanicus on 3, Grey Knights on 2, and Adeptus Sororities on 1. For the Chaos players, which is 22% of the players there, we've got 5 players on Demon, which we love, 4 players on Death Guard, 4 players on Thousand Suns, 2 Knights plays, Chaos Knights, 1 Chaos Space Marine. Wait, what? Just 1? Wild. 1 straight up Khorne Demon and 1 straight up Slanesh. Are those 2 included in the Chaos, or is that like 7 Chaos plays?
That's 7
Like
Chaos
7
Demons, 7 Demons players total.
That is 7 Demons plays. I approve. Hot. For Elder, we have 5 for Asurani, 2 for Drakari, 2 for Harlequins, and 1 for Elder. We only have 11% of players playing the Elder. Xenon.
Pretty good.
We got 8 people playing Tau. Go get a life. 5 people on Orcs. 1 on Necrons. Look, respect to Tau. They must be coming back. Did they get hit well with the Omen stuff? Well, like,
they did.
Hit,
they got hit pretty hard with points, but we'll get into one of the lists, and particularly after Hayden Walduck doing so well with Farside Enclaves at Uprising, I think we're going to start to see people kind of mimic the way that he has approached them. And one of the lists that we will look at does mimic Hayden's approach.
Beautiful, beautiful. Hive Mind, we got 3 people on Tyranids and 2 for Gene Stealer Cults. 6% of players are still, repping the Tyranids. That's quite good, because I thought that was dead. So, and so for our top 3 factions, we got 7 plays on Demons for number 3. For number 2, we have 8 plays on Tau, which is 10%. And then number 1, no shock, Astra Militarum, 9 plays, which is 11% of the plays, which I think just for Guard alone, they're tied with just the whole Eldar faction. And then Nelly double Hive Mind. So that's bonkers.
It's
Yeah.
funny that you mentioned about Tyranids, you thought they were dead. I think one of the things that, I've noticed, and, this is happening globally as well, is that there's no CSM players anymore. They've
Yeah.
all dropped down. They started having representation to the same level as Space Marines in the last few events. Uprising Adelaide, as an example, where it started maybe being on the decline. But if you're looking at any events before that, you could see that there was actually quite a few showing. But now that there's only one, like you saw DC, it's pretty surprising.
Yeah.
There's a few probably surprising ones. I mean, maybe Imperial Fists, that there's 2 players. That's good, good on them. Being, joint tied for the second most popular Space Marine faction. Maybe we're seeing things that no one else is seeing, or they're seeing things that no one else is seeing, I should say. So that's my hot pick for some wild fun.
Yeah, another thing I'll point out, there's no leagues of Votan.
Yeah.
No leagues at all. It's surprising that there's only one Necron, considering Necrons are actually still in a pretty good spot. Yes, their secondaries did cop a bit of a change, but they are actually still really playable in the meta.
They got cheaper.
Yeah.
So they can spam a lot of bodies, and if people can't deal with those bodies, especially with reanimation and invuln saves, then they quickly get the win.
Yeah, 100%. And that's how I've been getting wins with my Necrons. Then, seeing again, you've only got the one Chaos Space Marines player, is also like, as you said, it comes off the back of the change to Creations of Bile, which a lot of players were taking. But it's also could be local meta thing. Maybe we've seen a lot more players go to Death Guard and Thousand Suns, which you can see here. You've got 4 Death Guard and 4,000 Suns. So maybe some of those Chaos Space Marine players have jumped over to them specifically rather than playing the core codex.
Do we know what faction the Chaos Space Marine player is, or?
I could have a look and find out for us.
Check as well.
But yeah, I was sort of thinking most of the Chaos Space Marine players I know pretty much picked either Tzeentch or Nurgle and then just pretty much ran with that. I think Death Guard are pretty good after the buffs as well, so they're like rocking and rolling. Thousand Sun, I haven't really heard much about them. I've also haven't been keeping my ears to the street lately, so
yeah,
they could be
Chaos
pretty hot.
Space Marines is we've got you right here, Creations of Bile.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It features some Chaos Bikers, some possessed good stuff, and some Legionaries, and bringing back the Lord Disco.
The Disco Lord.
Yeah. So we'll see how that goes. Got some Warp Talons as well, so it's actually a pretty fast list.
Yeah, and the other thing I will mention as well that was brought up by chat is that Igor is the Necron player, and he was top Necrons, I believe, or he was close. Yeah, he was best Necron in South Pacific last season, so he definitely knows what he's doing with his Necrons.
Yeah, he was number 1 last season. The season before, he was number 2. Liam Packett obviously took him out of that one. So he consistently gotten results with them. He is a faction specialist for Necrons.
Yeah, 100%.
But we do have a few faction specialists coming out as well, and representing. So yeah, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I guess I'm
faction
also
swaps too.
Yeah, there's been a couple of people have jumped factions. One notable, for example, is Michael House. He used to be massive on the Orcs. Now he's actually jumped over to Thousand Suns. So
you have Josh Brody, who's obviously a CSM lover, and he's done the jump for Demons. And I feel like a lot of CSM players have done that jump as well. Demons are in a great spot.
I was just thinking that, 7 plays on Demons makes total sense. I was just thinking the other day how they're in a pretty good spot. The fact that they took away Flamers didn't really change much. For our codex, it made everyone else's life miserable. I'm glad. Get them out of here. But our codex was all sort of pretty decent already. And now that the Flamers aren't there, people are actually looking at stuff. They've been bringing, the cannons, for example. I was taking them at 100 points. The fact that they brought them down to 90, I was just excited. I was hectic. Let's do it.
Cannons looking good.
Fleshy hounds, cheap.
Yeah. They've got some really good stuff that they can make use of, and particularly if you look at Matt Morrisoli's list, which Nick Nardivardi also took a very similar list with some tweaks, and of course Matt beat Nick's list. at LVO. Of course, that was under Nephilim, not under Arcs of Omen. So, grain of salt there because of, obviously, Flamers not having their nerf. But I still think, yeah, I agree with you, Deeksy, that Demons are in a great spot at the moment. I think Astra Militarum are also a very good spot. I think a lot of guard players have come out of the woodwork being like, yes, I've got a new codex, let's go, I want to jam this, I want to have fun, I want to play this army again. So it's no surprise to me that Astra Militarum are on top. I'm surprised at Tau. They got hit hard in Crisis Suits and in Commanders. They also got hit on, I believe it was Kroot and Ethereals. So all the core stuff that they were taking, they've still got hit, but they're still relatively strong in terms of the game, and they seem to be performing quite well. People are just adapting.
I think for me, the main thing is that AOC did impact them, and with Armor of Contempt being removed, they realistically, despite the points, actually got above.
Yeah.
In my opinion, they're in a really good spot because while the other units sure went slightly more for points and increased, Arcs of Omen firstly means that you don't even have to take troops. So you can kind of remove that option if you want. So you don't really need the Kroot, and Kroot Hounds are leagues better. Then you have the other option of being able to now run things that had a moderate amount of AP but weren't good enough, now that they actually are good enough. So you have other options. So still think that they probably need to rewrite with the book. There's a lot of units that you can't really use, but it is in a really good spot to get kills. And we saw these maps, and maybe some people, were able to play on these maps and playtest or whatever it is, because I think Tower's in a really good spot to get really good value on these sort of terrain layouts.
Yeah, I would agree. I definitely would agree. Even without knowing the terrain layouts, like, Tau should deal pretty well if they're working in a lot of mobility and they've got their shooting and they get the angles. Like, at the end of the day, if they get the right angles, they're fine. So
18-inch with Fly and then Fire and Fade is just still bonkers good. Transports, I think, are the best thing you can have in the game right now, and a lot of people are running Devilfish Breacher lists, so having that combination can be really disruptive. And then, of course, Fire and Fade with not just that, Crisis unit that you had, but Fire and Fade as well with things like Riptides. You can make it so you're getting unit wipes without actually taking losses.
Yeah, 100%.
Which everyone loves, right?
Yeah, that
everyone
trading
loves
game.
playing against Tau.
All right. Well, I reckon that wraps us up for a bit of the meta breakdown. If anyone in chat has any other ideas of what you think of the meta, feel free to let us know. Love to hear your thoughts as well. So we're now going to jump into looking at some of the lists that are present. Oh, that should be linked up to the right thing, I believe. There we go. All right.
In the meantime, if the chat wants to mention any factions that they think are going to be getting outstanding results, feel free to post them down. It'll be good to see.
I would say my money's probably, I'm not sure who it would be, but I'd place a safe bet on either Ash Militarum or Demons being on the top table round 5.
I have a bold claim, and I think it's probably going to be a guard versus guard.
Oh.
And it's just going to be a yuck matchup, and we'll see what will happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, we have some really good guard players that are coming. There's 9 of them as well. We've obviously seen that there's some maps that can, favor it. And, not that I've done this on a quick check, but I think just on my feeling, I think there's more shooting armies than there are melee armies that are coming to the event. So that means that guard have a little bit more of an edge as well, because they are a really good shooting army. So being able to ensure that the enemy is not coming to you is a really good spot. There aren't enough Eldar representations, and the terrain is a bit lighter in terms of angles and things like that for Eldar to hide. So I have a feeling that, one of the biggest counters for guard is outs. And the only other counter then is really demons. So we'll see how they play into the demons matchup. But my bet's that the guard players, there's some skill there. So we'll see how they go.
The chapter calls, and we
for sure.
answer.
We got a couple of calls from chat. We reckon Ziku Brody reckons guard as well. Hololicious reckons Tau. Admech as well. We've got some calls in there. And then Calzone Gaming also reckons either Dark Angels or Custodes as well. Custodes are doing quite well at the moment with their OBSEC changes, so they're not ones to be written off either. Alrighty, so we're going to jump into some lists now. And first up, we've got the man, one of the men of Down Under 40k, Mr. Big Bad Ben Way, who is running Gene Stealer Colts. Last season in 2022 for the ITC season, he was 33rd overall in the South Pacific, and he was 10th in the South Pacific for Gene Stealer Colts. So, let's have a look at what he's taking. So, he gives up 150 plus wounds on No Prisoners, 19 Assassinate points, 2 points on Bring It Down, and 3 points on Abhor the Witch. In his Arcs of Omen detachment, he's taken the Troops as compulsory as a Twisted Helix Cult detachment. He's got 2 extra relics, 3 relics, and an extra Warlord trait. Daz, this is Ben's list. Then we have got the Acolyte Icon Ward in there that's got blasting charges as well. You got the Patriarch, who is the Warlord with the Bio-Alchemist Warlord trait, the Elixir of the Prime Specimen for enhanced aggression and enhanced resilience as the relic. He's got the Mutagenic Deviation, Psychic Familiar, as well as Might from Beyond in terms of the power there. A Primus with Bone Sword, and then Exacting Planner, Proficient Planning, with the Needle Pistol and Injector Claw. In terms of troops, he has got a unit of Acolyte Hybrids. By looks, it is, what's that? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, a 15-man unit with a Trapper's Sprung, Proficient Planning. There is, by looks, 7... Well, they've all got blasting charges, but there are 7 heavy rock claws in there. Sorry, 6 heavy rock swords, which is a lot for close combat. Then you've got another unit of 5 Acolyte Hybrids that have got... one has got the double demo charges with blasting charges as well. A Hand Flamer in there as well. Then you've got another unit of Acolyte Hybrids with double blasting charges and double demo charges and blasting charge. By looks, it seems to be a couple of those throughout here. Then we've got a unit of 10 Neophyte Hybrids with Proficient Planning lying in wait, with shotguns, 2 that have got 2 blasting charges and blasting charges on the leader as well. A unit of 20 Neophyte Hybrids that have got a perfect ambush with shotguns, 4 with blasting charges and blasting charges on the leader as well. 4 of them have got the seismic cannons, and 4 of them have got Webbers as well. Another unit of 20 that is the exact same without proficient planning. A Biphagus, I believe is how you pronounce that, with an Alchemic Familiar, Chemical Vials, Injector Goads, and then the Alchemist Supreme Proficient Planning. The Kelamorph with the Wormtooth Rounds Relic. A Nexus with the Cranial Inlay Relic. A unit of 10 Pure Strain Gene Stealers with they came from the below Proficient Planning, and a unit of 8 with Our Time is Nigh Proficient Planning. A Sanctus. And then, by looks, a massive unit of Atlan Jackals for the 10 Atlan Jackals with demo charges, blasting charges in there as well. And the genomic enhancement from the Alchemist Supreme is enhanced resilience on them with 2 Wolf Quads with incinerators. Then another unit of 5 Atlan Jackals with power weapons and small arms and blasting charges. Then 2 Goliath trucks, 1 with the from every angle proficient planning. They've got heavy stubbers and twin autocannons. 2,000 points, 2 CP left over. What do we think, gentlemen?
So one cool thing with Jackals now, I mean, in the GSE, I think they're in a better spot than what they were beforehand. Obviously, the detachment personally makes things really welcoming and easy for them. Secondly, there's a lot of free stuff. So like your Jackals now having the power weapons are really good because they can actually now do something in melee. Previously, they couldn't. This is a lot of bodies on the field. Now, realistically speaking, you want to try and screen out and stop Gene Stealers from actually being able to make their value. This is going to be a bit difficult on these maps because it is a bit more open than traditional maps. Now, if you are trying to screen out, the enemy does have a chance to actually react and take you out that following turn instead of deep striking. and then they can actually just destruct the following turn after that. So definitely some things that you have to watch out for is when and one thing that Gene Stealer is really good at is obviously just, taking you out before you actually can even interact with them. So we're going to see what happens here. Benny Way hates being talked about, and hates when people talk highly of him. So let's just give him some positive affirmations for a bit and get him annoyed. He has let's just think of a few on the top of my head. He's got great eyes, great accent. He's such an amazing person for the community. He's also part of Team Australia, just like myself. So really excited to be with him, and hopefully maybe I get a cheeky bunk bed with him and get to be with that stud for a bit. But aside from that, I don't know what else. His shoulder blades, he's been working out, so his shoulder blades are bigger than my aspirations in life. There's a whole bunch of different things we can say there. So Ben Way, I think he's gonna, if he does well at this event, I think he's gonna start up an OnlyFans. So if he does that, we'll be sure to send the link. And yeah, Benny Way, I think I've already put it up in there. Hashtag there's no way but the Ben Way.
Nice.
Well, like the Greek said, he doesn't like it when people talk nice about him. I'll just be mean. It looks like he brought a bit of everything. I don't blame him. He's trash. He probably doesn't know what he wants. He doesn't know which way he's going. No, honestly, this list seems like I wouldn't even know where to begin. Looks like it's got answers to everything, and it also gives you so many questions. And I'm like, dude, I can barely answer your questions, let alone give you something to solve. So yeah, he's really good at the game. I'll just try to dodge him if I was everyone else there. But if you run into him, buy him a beer. Oh no, don't buy him a beer. He doesn't drink. Give him a slap on the ass. Send it for Deeksy, and then he'll be all good.
One important thing is that it's really hard to keep up with all the rules for Gene Stealer Cults, hence why there's only 2 players representing the faction. If it sounds like it doesn't make sense, it doesn't work that way, it probably does work that way. So just believe him. That's my best advice.
Ask a lot of questions before you deploy. Yeah. Get out of the clock
while the clock's on him.
And make sure he explains it well enough that you understand. Okay, that's on him.
And if you need to keep playing out the clock, just so you don't understand his accent.
So to bring it back a little bit, so I like this list. It does bring a lot of the good stuff that Gene Stealer Cult does have. It's got those bricks of Acolyte hybrids and a couple of bricks of Neophyte hybrids. Whereas you look at, say, Eric Lathoris's list, he was just running 20 Neophyte hybrids, multiple units. It was the big stuff with flamers, and just being able to just come on and just kill stuff outright, right? The amount of shots. This is a bit different. And as Alex has already said, Gene Stealer Cult rules are really hard to keep up with. They're one of those armies that if you're not aware of what things do, they can definitely catch you off guard. And that is just the way that they play. I mean, the Gene Stealer Cults, for crying out loud, they hide half their stuff and then they spring a trap and you go, oh crap, I'm stuck in the middle now. So I'd be really interested to see how Gene Stealer Cult do go into not only the terrain maps, but also into the Arcs of Omen meta as well. So
he's actually just put up a really good point in the chat there. Obviously, with guard being so prevalent, there's 12-inch no deep strike bubbles everywhere. Obviously, there's 12 Marines players, and I would hazard a bet that nearly every single one has infiltrators as well. So there's going to be really difficult there. I think this is why you've probably seen something and a little bit of a shift with Ben Way's list. He does have quite a bit of shooting still regardless. So even if he can't come in within 12 and go for charges, what he can do is bring those units in and actually go for shooting. So he does have one angle there that he can actually obviously operate in, but it is obviously making Gene Stealers not able to do what they want to do is obviously the best way to beat them.
Yeah, 100%. Alrighty, next up we're going to be jumping over to Brody Middleton's list. Now, Alex, you've got a bit of background about Brody if you care to share.
Brody, he's an average player from Europe. He only came first in the world with Eldari, something that anyone could really do, I think. It's pretty easy. Everyone knows Eldari is just an easy army to play and doesn't require any forward thought or, precise planning or anything like that. There we go. Daz himself is just saying weak English meta because, Look, I will note that Brody is actually Australian born. He just went over to basically represent Australia and school a few Europeans for us. He's played against people like Manichima.
Yeah.
He's in a huge, league himself. I actually am pinning. I actually think he's going to win the event. Let's be honest. He's been playing guard only recently. He has actually played guard for years and years and years. But I'm saying in terms of Ninth Ed, he's only just started his kind of guard journey again there. It's going to be really interesting how he goes. He has a completely evil list. He's been talking to me about his list. I've played against him a fair few times, more than probably anyone else in Australia in the last few years, I guess. So I know what his skill set is. Be scared, and not much else to say about it. I think I'll get in trouble if I tell you how to beat it.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's just jump straight on into this. It is Astra Militarum. He starts off with 1 CP. He has taken Born Soldiers to be expected. He gives up 16 points in Assassinate, 13 on Bring It Down, and 67 wounds on No Prisoners. So this seems like it's going to be a vehicle-heavy list straight from those immediately. So he's got Lord Solar Leontis, who is a great pick, I'll be honest, as the Warlord with the Grand Strategist Warlord trait. Canadian Command Squad with the Plasma Gun, with the final of the Nimrodesh first, Relic, and the Master Tactician Warlord trait. Tank Commander with Battle Cannon, Triple Heavy Bolters, Armored Tracks, and the Gatekeeper Relic, which I think is the Relic Battle Cannon. And then the Death Corps Marshal in there as well. 2 units of Canadian Shop Troops with a Plasma Gun, Melt Gun with Auto Guns in them as well. A unit of Kaskin that are Veteran Guerrillas with 2 Plasma, 2 Hot Shot with the Barbican's Key Relic. Another unit of Kaskin that are Mechanized Infantry with 2 Plasma, 2 Hot Shots. And then another unit of Kaskin with Brutal Strength. 3 units of Combat Engineers. And then the free character slot in Elites for Sly Marbo. Unit of 3 Sentinels with 3 Plasmas and Hunter Killer Missiles. And then 2 solo Scout Sentinels with Plasma. 2 heavy weapon teams with 3 mortars in each. And then a Lehman Russ Squadron with 3 Executioners with triple heavy bolters, armored tracks, and dozer blades. And then a Chimera with armored tracks, multi-laser, and heavy flamer. That is the list. That is a mounted guard list if I've ever seen one.
I'll be honest, the only criticism I have of this list is that it doesn't have a Taurox instead of a Chimera. He's done really well. Like his list design, everything he's got is in a really good spot. He's utilizing Combat Engineers now that there's been the Forge World update, which is really smart. He's utilizing Sly Marvel, which not everyone is doing yet. This is really good. There you go. He didn't have the model. That's the only reason he's not running.
That's fair. I've done that before.
So, good on him. I mean, look, Chimeras are fine. I don't think there's a huge issue, but Tauroxes are just so good. They're so cheap and cost effective. He's got a scary list. I think it's really good for the table picks. This will be really his first time kind of really putting this list on the board completely. I think the only other time he's done it actually was we had one practice game for Team New South Wales. We weren't really running this list, but we were testing out a few different things. So yeah, it's really exciting. I'm really keen to see what he does. Also, I forgot to mention, I did post this on the chat, he is actually playing for Team Australia.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
100%. Like, the Scout Sentinels there for the forward deploy, really cheeky. Like, I just see a lot of guard players going towards Sentinels. They're just really good at the moment. Mortar teams, not unexpected, to be honest. Like, they're good in direct fire. That just do a mass amount of shots and damage. Leontis in there to give you +1 CP first turn, or you can change a secondary, is also like a really decent ability. Half the time you won't change the secondary, so more than likely you just get an extra CP. With only starting on 1, it means he starts the game with 2. So it's a really good setup for the guard there. Again, I can't fault anything in this list. Executioners are brilliant at the moment as well. Gatekeeper Relic for the Tank Commander is going to be really good as well. The only thing, the 30 Kaskin, great. I think the only thing that you don't see in terms of orders, there's no Commissar. So no Commissar orders at all. unless there's an ability somewhere in there that allows, say, the Canadian Command Squad to take Commissar orders. I'm just not 100% across the guard. Yeah.
Leontis does it.
Leontis has all orders. Of course he does.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's what I was going to say. I'm pretty sure he can give them out to Nelly everyone. He's like the least restricted guy, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Because he's the Lord Commander, right?
Yeah. Are Gatekeepers heaps good in the Chaos these days? How'd that change go? Did they change it much, or with the new codex, like the Gatekeeper?
The Gatekeeper.
Pretty sure it just like destroys demons.
Like, does anyone know the rules behind the Gatekeeper? Is it still decent? Chat, help us out here, man. Come on.
Here we go. We'll get Brady to chat. Don't worry. While we're waiting for that, anyway, one really thing. Oh, here you go. Straight away. Doesn't have any bonus versus chaos, but there's the Avengers Acadia strat.
Okay, fair.
Yeah. One thing that as well, while this is a very high output list, it's really good at scoring passive secondaries. Those mortars, even if they're not doing any damage, they can get you boots on the ground or in flexible command. So 2 secondaries that you get really good scores on. The rest of the list as well does that. Sly Marbo does that. The engineers do that. It's really well set up, and I think this is probably going to be a podium list.
Yeah. I love the Sly Marbo pick. Like, that's amazing. Ben or Tim, if you're listening, they are going off their heads right now. We've been trying to tell Tim to take Sly Marbo for like a month straight, man. That guy is amazing. He just has bonker rules. He just does whatever he wants.
Yeah, I think Tim started playing him now. So
cheeky. I like that.
Yeah. I think I saw it the other day.
Yeah.
Don't give away too many of his secrets.
But yeah, no, I really like this list, and I agree with you, Alex, that he's probably in contention for being up the top for sure. Alrighty, next up, we're going to jump over to the next list, which is going to be Cooper Fitzgerald's Farsight Enclave's Tau. So, a bit of stats on Cooper. He was 69th overall last season for the ITC, and he was 7th in the South Pacific for Tau, and that was 69th for the ITC here in South Pacific as well. So to walk you through what he's taken, he's got the compulsory troops for this one. He hasn't taken elites or anything like that, but he's running Farsight Enclaves. He's got the Cadre Fireblade with Exemplar of the Kauyon Warlord trait and 2 Markalite drones. Commander Farsight with Exemplar of the Montcar, who is the Warlord. A Commander in Cold Star Battlesuit with Precision of the Hunter. Triple frag burst with the Dominator fragmentation launcher as well, so that's swapping one of those out with the high output burst cannon as well with 2 Markalite drones. Then 3 units of, I believe that reads as 9 breaches in there. It could be 10. I'm not 100% certain if it's going to be.
Yeah, it's
actually it'd be like the 9 and then the leader or whatever the leader's called or something.
Yeah,
like
I think it's just formatted a bit funky.
Yeah. Then a unit of crisis suits. There's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 crisis suits in there. With burst cannons, cyclic ion blasters, plasma rifles. The regular guys all have target lock. The Shazvare, which is the sergeant for the unit, has the Iridium battle suit, shield generator, and stim injectors with 4 Markalite drones and a shield drone. Then 3 units of 4 Kroot Hounds. Then 2 Riptide battle suits, both identical. They've got plasma rifles, ion accelerators, multi-trackers, a shielded missile drone, target lock, and velocity trackers as well. And then 3 Devilfish with double gun drones coming in at 1997 points with 3 CP. What are our thoughts, gentlemen?
Just want to point something out that so far we've had 2 chatmate players. My team. I'm part of this.
He's briefing us.
Really good.
He set this up. I swear. What the heck?
Hey, I removed myself from the list to watch, so just putting that out there. Look, I actually played against this list yesterday. It's a scary list. It's really good. More importantly than the list, I don't really highly rate Tau itself, but I highly rate Cooper. And he's so precise. He knows what he's doing. He forward plans. He works things out. I've never seen such a precise player in terms of deployment, measuring, and then working out where he wants to go for his whole army from the start. He's really good at doing that. So really props to Cooper there. I think with this terrain format as well, he's going to be able to get a lot of value. And I think he's going to do some great things.
Yeah, definitely agree. And I see a lot of parallels from his list compared to Hayden Walduck's list, as I was saying a bit earlier. That, you know, he's got the Devilfish with the breaches, he's got the Riptides, he's also got the Kroot Hounds in there to screen, and then he's got Farsight, the Cold Star, as well as the Crisis Brick. The Cadre Fireblade's a bit of an interesting choice. I'm surprised that he's taken that over maybe something else or putting those points elsewhere, but I'm sure he's got a reason for taking that unit. It might be just to sit in the backfield and hold the backfield objective, or give some other benefit out. But, you know, as you're saying, Alex, like, he's definitely taking it for a reason.
Yeah, so realistically speaking, one, I'm not saying this is the reason he's using it, but it is an infantry keyword, and obviously he has no more Kroot. So for when doing one of the Tau secondaries, it is really good to have him at the start doing the backline objective. That's actually in the deployment zone. So being able to do that is really handy. And then obviously he's another unit that at the end of the game isn't really in play that can actually push through. Obviously still has Exemplar of the Cayenne, which is really, really handy. One of the best things that you can have the Tau. So it works out well. His other things as well that he has, you know, different to Walduck, I think, was that he's included the battle suits in his list. But by doing so, I mean, the good thing is I think he has enough CP, right? How much CP is Cooper starting on?
He starts on 3 CP.
See, that's enough. You know, he's able to actually consistently fire and fade each turn. That's going to make things really scary. He's planned it out well. You know, you don't really want to run, you know, Crisis if you haven't got the CP for it. So he's set himself up for success with this list design.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Deeksy?
I'm a big fan of the Riptide battle suits. I'm glad they're coming out a lot more. Like, he's very smart to just play around like Alex said, the Crisis suits. They're just gonna be fire fading all the time. They're gonna have a lot of support fire with the Riptides. Hopefully a lot, like, they're gonna get a lot of lanes with their movement. Like, they move pretty decently as well. But they're gonna like absolutely control some of the like maps that we looked at. He's got enough like troops to actually sort of sit on some objectives, and then I feel like the Crisis will just always come out late game and just take over everything.
Yeah, definitely.
Thanks for life.
I definitely think like those, like, I think it's aerospace targeting relays is the secondary you're referring to, Alex. Like, I think he's definitely set himself up to be taking that one, particularly with the mobility of the breaches going into the Devilfish. He'll be able to get far with those pretty quickly when he needs to, even on maps like Death and Zeal. You know, I was listening to the Normal Blokes podcast, and Hayden Walduck was explaining how he was able to get the middle of the short table edge of his opponent's deployment line turn 1 through using a Devilfish and then moving, I believe it was a Pathfinder team, but he, you know, Cooper doesn't have that, so he's probably going to use breaches for a similar result. So things like that.
Yeah, most people don't probably know this because they haven't really had huge play recently, at least. But breaches can actually, or anything in Devilfish can actually move after the Devilfish has moved. So the Devilfish moves, you then disembark and move, and then you can do actions or shoot. So you are in a really good spot. Firstly, to get angles, which, like we said, fast moving things to get angles is really important in these maps. And secondly, it really helps to help him with his secondary objective too. So yeah, really good list. My best tip for it is stay out of 30-inch range of the battle suits.
Yep.
There's only
big
one.
ask. That's a big ask.
Yeah, there's only one terrain set that has you know, is basically windowless. So that's the one that they're probably going to try and hide behind. We'll see.
Yep, definitely agree. All right, next up, we're going to be jumping into Chris O'Neill's Adeptus Custodes list. So a bit of stats on him. He was 15th overall in the South Pacific for the ITC last season. And I believe I couldn't find any ranking stats from last season for Adeptus Custodes, so I think he's jumped onto them for this season.
Yeah, he's definitely really known for Knights. Like,
yeah,
he's a Chad player. Like, I know him, I won't say very well, but I know him enough to stay out of his way if I get a choice. This guy, like, the fact that he's jumping on Custodes is pretty scary because Custodes is in a really good spot right now. And like I said, he will run through anyone. He is a deadly player.
100%.
And honestly, now that I know that this is his list, I'm putting it on him right now. He might take it out.
Oh.
Fun fact: he actually just went to an RTT to play this list last weekend, and lo and behold, he went undefeated. Came second. So that was out of 26 players. He knows what to do. Despite this being a new list for him, he's a very good pilot and is really skilled at jumping onto new factions and being able to make value immediately with them. He did the same with Gene Stealer Cults previously. He's also played Tyranids, and like Deeksy said, he's played Knights. So expecting big things from him. We'll see how he goes.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so his list. He is running Elites as his compulsory slot as an Emperor's Chosen shield host. He's got Alea with the Misera Concordia and Somnus Blade. The Blade Champion, who has got Superior Creation, Peerless Warrior, so that's the double Warlord traits. Trajan Valorius as Master of Martial Strategy and Champion of the Imperium, as the Warlord with the Watcher's Axe. He's then got 2 units of 3 Custodian Guard with Spears and Misericordias, 2 units of 5 Prosecutors with Bolters, so they're Sisters of Silence for those who aren't familiar with their individual unit names because they've given them now. Then 2 units of 2 Alurus Custodians with the Grenade Launchers and Axes, a Contemptor Archulus Dreadnought with the Dread Spear, Eternal Penitent Stratagem, and the two Twin Adrithic Destructors. 2 units of 3 Custodian Wardens, 1 with Spears, the other with Axes. And then 2 units of 3 Virtuous Praetors, 1 with Salvo Launchers, and the other with Hurricane Bolters. Coming in at 2,000 points with 3 CP at the start of the game. This is a brutal list. This is a Custo's good stuff.
I'm scared more of the Hurricane Bolters than I am of the Salvo Launchers. So really good pick that he's actually done that. If you want to know like what they can actually do, as an example, it's rapid fire 6. So if they are in half range and they are fast, it's 12 shots per model. So you're looking at 36 shots on the Hurricane Bolter there, hitting on 2s. So can have a really good amount of volume fire right there as well. So the list overall is pretty balanced. I do think that he might have some issues with getting up the board, but he has opportunities to tag people and work things out. You're noticing that there's no actual big bricks. So despite, Liam Hackett, for example, getting some really good success with the 20 Wardens, so 2 lost 10. This is a definite list that's not, kind of following that path, but also following, some of the buffs that Custodes have received. So, there's Alaris Custodians, the Custodian Wardens getting OPSEC, which helps out a lot.
So, Ezekiel Brody just pointed out in chat that he thinks Solar Watch may have been a better choice for advance and charge into the shooting matchups, and that the Praetors are potentially going to struggle to get up without getting shot. Is it quite possible that he might outflank? By what I mean by outflank is putting the Praetors into strategic reserves and bringing them on.
He could. There's a lot of armies that will counter that right now. Most armies are speccing to counter things like GSC and Demons currently because it's so cost effective. So what I mean by that is infiltrators right now for Marines are just so cheap. For Guardsmen, it's just a guarantee. So it can be fairly difficult there. However, if you are just using them for shooting, you can do that. I have a feeling, though, that this is probably a list that I think is very powerful. The terrain here might impact it to a degree. Obviously, nobody knew what the terrain layouts were like. So we've all made lists that I guess every single person here is probably thinking in hindsight, maybe I want to make one tweak or one other tweak. So realistically, this event in its purpose was to try and get people to just make every man lists that can operate independently however they want. So we're going to really stress test it here and really see what is the most flexible list, I guess, based on different, kind of terrain parameters and everything else like that.
Yeah.
You can definitely tell that, like, in his list design, because if you look through it, like, he's got a lot of, like, 2 units or something, but, like, full of Wardens and Praetors, for example, like, 1's Spears and 1's Axes, full of Praetors, 1's Salvo Launcher, and 1 is the Hurricane Bolter. Like, he's not really hard spec'd into anything specifically. He's just more like making sure he's got everything covered. I'm not sure how this list is going to go in that. I think it's the round 3, the real open one for shooting. I feel like that might be a bit of a hard one for him to even move up and hold objectives, but it is still going to be a very tough list to get through.
If it was
Yeah.
anyone else piloting the list, I'd say, you're probably impacting yourself to a degree right now because you have to get used to the fact that now, as a Custodes player, you can't operate with grind them down as effectively. But knowing that it is Chris, I've played against Chris numerous times. I know that he is going to get some good results with it regardless. And if the last weekend's RTT is any, indication, he's going to do some great things.
Yeah, definitely agree. Like, I think we're seeing a lot more MSU come out of Custodes now, rather than like you're seeing two polar opposites. You're seeing either the MSU or you're seeing those 20 bricks that Liam Hackett took. Like, there's no real in between that we're seeing at the moment. So I'd be, excited to see this game on, this play on stream and see how it actually goes and see how he pilots it. To be honest, it would be a great game to watch. So
just make sure that the camera's panning a bit lower because the light will reflect off his head.
Alrighty, we're going to jump into one more list for this evening, ladies and gentlemen, and that is going to be Damien Ridgewell's list. He is running Dark Angels. Last season for the South Pacific ITC, he came in 78th overall and was 16th with Dark Angels. So let's have a look at what he is running. So he's got no command points to start off with. He spent them all. His list is 1997 points with 3 things going into reinforcements, I believe. 3 reinforcement points is what he's saying here. 13 units, 15 points on Assassination, 2 points on Bring It Down, 13 points on No Prisoners, and 0 points on Abhor the Witch. Second at Uprising. Yeah, Daz mentioned that in chat. 100%. Second at Uprising is definitely one to keep an eye out for. So, he has got in his detachment.
Read the chat.
Yeah. He's got Lazarus. So that, I believe that's the named lieutenant, the named Primaris lieutenant. Then a Ravenwing Talad Master with the Arbiter's Gaze, stock standard take. And then Samael. 2 units of 5 infiltrators with Helix Gauntlets. Then a Deathwing Ancient with the Watched Chapter Ancient as well with the Pennant of Remembrance. Rights of War Warlord trait. Along with Thunderhammer Storm Shield. And is the Warlord as well, so he's put everything into the Ancient. A Deathwing Terminator squad that has got... the Sergeant's got Thunderhammer Storm Shield. There are 2 with Cyclone Missile Launchers with Thunderhammer Storm Shield, and the rest are all Thunderhammer Storm Shield with the Watcher in the Dark. Times that by 2, then a unit of Ravenwing a Ravenwing Apothecary, I should say, as the Chief Apothecary with the Selfless Healer Warlord trait. And then 3 units of attack bikes, 3 attack bikes in each, all with multi-melters, and then a Ravenwing Landspeeder Vengeance with the Assault Cannon. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts on this Dark Angels list?
I haven't actually versed the
Amazing,
new
right?
Dark Angels list yet, but to be honest, I'm quite scared. I know they're in such a great spot right now. I would love to see how quickly this guy wipes half someone's army, while his army's still impossible to move.
Yep.
It's interesting. It's a bit different to what he ran previously, and I think his other list in my mind was a bit stronger. But I know that Damien, I've actually played Damien a few times as well, and he's a good player. He's been playing Dark Angels for God knows how long, probably since he popped out of the womb. I don't know. But he was screaming heresy at that point, right? But he knows what he's doing. His army actually is painted amazingly as well. He has the infiltrators, which I think are mandatory right now.
Yeah.
Talon Masters are just so good. He's got the Terminators, and Terminators obviously are going to be quite scary. He's got the Apothecary, so he can actually give the Feel No Pain as well as the Revivals. He's got the Ancient as well, so there's things like shooting on death, which, I mean, I don't need to say that, stay out of melter range, right? If you're going to be destroying them, you have to make sure that you get the clean kills and you get them from a good enough distance.
Yep.
Landspeeder Vengeance is a solid pick as well in my mind. I'm a very big fan of speeders more than attack bikes, but obviously attack bikes are core, and that's a really important thing to note. He can do a lot of great things with this list and how it's designed. It's really good for secondaries as well. Majority of it is all heavy weapons, so it's really good for Codex Warfare. and it's really good for actually just being on the points, getting shot tactics, getting odes and moments, things like that too.
I think the bikes are going to be amazing for how the terrain is as well. Like just thinking about how they're going to move and be able to just pick who they want and hopefully delete whatever they're looking at. So then their opponent's going to have to like work extremely hard to get angles on the bikes. I think that like I love the bikes in the list. I think they're going to be amazing at this event.
Yeah, I'd agree. Attack bikes have been a really solid choice, particularly for Dark Angels, because in a unit with the Ravenwing Apothecary that's able to bring them back, they're 4 wounds, T5, putting out 6 multi-melter shots total from a unit, it's just money. For 50 points per bike, that's ridiculous. Like, that's jam. Like, that's so good. I like that he's gone full combat on the Terminators with the Cyclones. He hasn't kind of mixed and match going Power Fist with Bolters or Lightning Claws in there as well.
That's what the bikes are for, baby.
I like that he's just gone, okay, these guys are just going to sit together. Whether they're going to sit, one unit's going to sit in the backfield, the other unit's going to push midfield, it really depends. I'd be interested to see if he considers. I don't think he would. But if he considers taking Stubborn Defiance because of the Infiltrators, but I doubt you would.
Maybe on the Scouring, because you can actually still get that, which is just really silly while also being hidden. So it's a really good pick for that one, but then we'll see what happens. I think one big thing with this list is that compared to what it was in Arcs, this is saving a lot of points.
Yeah,
this has gone down so much, between the Infiltrators, between the Terminators with the pre-war gear, the attack bikes, even everything. It's just in a really, 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 really good spot.
Yeah, 100% agree. Yeah. So, gentlemen, out of all of the lists that we have talked about tonight, if anyone was to take it out, who's your pick?
Oh, I think you already know. Like, look, I feel like Chris might be a little bit of an underdog, but he's going to body slam everyone. Lock it in.
All right, Deeksy's going with the Custodes with Chris.
Obviously me.
Let's go!
No, I've brought a Snowflake list. I'm not going to do as good as I want to. But I was also kind of in the point where I was a bit lazy at this point, and I'm kind of wanting to slow down a bit. So, but I think even if I brought a really competitive list, my money would be that Brody Middleton gets the win. And, I do also want to shout out Cooper. I think he's going to do some amazing things because of how he plays and how precise he is. So my money's on one of those two. I think both of them actually have a chance of actually being the podium. So yeah, there's my bold pick.
Yeah, I personally, I'm backing Brody Middleton, to be honest. The Guard are in such a good spot at the moment, and they're doing really well in terms of their win rate. And considering he's on Team Australia, he's come over from Europe from doing some amazing stuff over there, and he's coming back and doing really well to start off and jumping straight into the WTC team. So if he's on the WTC team, he knows what he's doing, and he's going to pilot this list as best he knows. He's probably my pick for who's going to win the tournament. But there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is going to be it for our tournament preview. I want to thank everyone that has joined us for the live stream, those who are watching us on YouTube, and those who are listening to us via the Down Under 40K podcast. I want to thank everyone for joining us for this evening, all the follows, all the bits, and the subs as well. Your support is greatly appreciated. Gentlemen, I want to thank you both for your time.
Thanks for having us.
It's been a pleasure.
And ladies and gentlemen, that is going to be it for us this evening. If you want to catch any of the games over the weekend, we will be providing the live streaming coverage of the Dice Arcade GT live. Another network member is going to be Jack, who's going to be on the ground. He'll be commentating the event in person. I'll be here in Canberra commentating it all day Saturday, most of the day Sunday. It's going to be awesome to see what happens for this event. And I hope that you did enjoy the tournament preview. Ladies and gentlemen, we hope to catch you next time.
Thanks, Stab. Probably everyone.